Whilst it is not mentioned specifically on this specification, and you won't get a question that asks for the free will defence alone, it is still important that you know what it is. This is partly because of who uses it and how it is used to defend theism against the challenge of evil. We have already seen that both Augustine and Irenaeus used the free will defence in different ways. We have seen reference to it made in the work of the modern scholar John Hick. In addition, the modern scholar Richard Swinburne uses the free will defence in his work. It is now not just a small part of the theodicies of scholars, but instead used as a theodicy in its own right. This means that it has been developed independently of other claims regarding God's nature. The basic gist of the free will defence is that evil is necessary in order for free will to be maintained. If God were not to allow evil, then our free will would be compromised. Swinburne develops this, but first we should look back at the different ways in which Irenaeus and Augustine used free will in their theodicies. Augustine is very negative in his outlook regarding human beings. He maintains that God's perfect creation, by saying that we were created imperfect as Genesis suggests, but since we were created with free will, we've fallen from perfection, and now we suffer as a just punishment for our sin. Free will was a gift from God that we have misused. In contrast, Irenaeus sees humanity in a more positive light. As far as he is concerned, we were created by God, but part of a perfect creation is the ability to voluntarily become perfect. He agrees that free will is responsible for evil, but sees it as the mechanism via which we learn and develop towards perfection. For Irenaeus, we are still being refined and created now. God's creative work is not finished. Richard Swinburne sees free will as the thing that makes us human beings. It differentiates us from the rest of created life. If God were to have created a world without free will, then we would not be humans. We would be mere automatons or robots. The world as it is provides real opportunities for us to do good or harm. We are not just programmed to respond to certain causes or triggers. We are created with intellect and reasoning. We make decisions and we choose. This is what makes us human beings. A challenge to the free will defence is that the suffering that we experience is too great, too extreme to warrant this defence. A really loving God could have made us with free will, but limited the extent of the evil that we could be capable of performing, or could stop the effects of our suffering if our misdemeanours were too great. He would protect the weak or the innocent. He would lessen the nature of our pain. Swinburne here uses the free will defence to counter this criticism. What Swinburne is saying here is that if God intervened to prevent the most awful horrors, then he would compromise the gift of free will and remove human responsibility. If we had endless chances at life, as Irenaeus suggests, then in fact we would not have genuine free will. We must have a limited lifespan, worth limited learning chances, in order to be really free and make our choices mean something. Whilst horrors like the Holocaust are the extreme of evil, if God prevented their consequences, then he would make our choices mean very little. If I aimed a gun at someone's head, but every time I fire the bullet skimmed past and missed, then it would be impossible for me to do any damage, and so I would never be responsible for what I am doing. The free will defence then points out that God can never interfere in order to stop the gravity and extent of our suffering. If he did so, then he would compromise our freedom. Therefore, human lifespan must be limited with a cap on how many chances we get. This creates genuine moral responsibility with real consequences that we must live with.